This is a world exclusive. NewsX has accessed the Justice B.N. Kirpal report on the Kanishka bombing, which was released in March of 1986, mere months after the June 1985 bombing killed over 300 people, a few of them at the Narita airport in Japan, but the larger chunk on an Air India flight 182. We will now put out on our screens the analysis and conclusion portion of this report, which I will take now in further detail with our guests. I have with me Ambassador Suresh Goyal, Lieutenant General Kamaljeet Singh, Colonel J.S. Sodhi and Major General Rajan Kochar. I thank all of our guests for joining us. We have over the past 2 hours discussed in great detail some of the events and the developments that led to these tragic bombings in two parts of the world at the same time. In the analysis and conclusions portion, the Justice B.N. Kirpal report in point 4.4 says that it is undisputed, there is ample evidence on record to prove it, that Air India's Kanishka had a normal and uneventful flight out of Montreal. The aircraft had been in air for about 5 hours and was cruising smoothly at an altitude of 31,000 feet. The readout from the CVR shows that there was no emergency on board till the catastrophic event had occurred. This is corroborated by the printout available from the DFDR. The event occurred at approximately 7:14 a.m. and that brought the aircraft down, and it is probably hit the surface of the sea within a distance of 5 miles. The time within which the plane came down at such a steep angle could not have been more than a few minutes. There was a sudden snapping of communication between the aircraft and the ground. The aircraft had suddenly disappeared from the radar. It is evident that an event had occurred at 31,000 feet, which had brought down Kanishka. What could have possibly happened to it? The aircraft was apparently incapacitated, and this was due to either having been hit from outside, due to some structural failure, or due to the detonation of an explosive device within the aircraft. Let me begin this conversation with Major General Rajan Kochar. Major General Kochar, like I said, through the course of the day, sir, we will of course go through greater details. But as far as the conclusion is concerned, I'd just like to inform our viewers that as far as this aspect of the aircraft being hit from outside, either by a foreign object or due to lightning or other such matters, that has been, as per experts from both India and Canada, was ruled out. As far as structural failure is concerned, this report also says that the aircraft was in a healthy position. What the communication, sir, the communication data of the aircraft reveals is a conversation between the pilot, the co-pilot and two other people, where they're discussing service within the aircraft. Mere minutes before this, there's a loud noise for about 5 seconds which is heard on the communication devices that are placed within, and then the aircraft loses all communication with the ATS. Basis that, sir, why do you think it took Canada over 3 decades to come to a conclusion, at least, that there was an explosion that took place on the Kanishka aircraft?
Thank you for asking me this question. The first and foremost aspect, what is actually emerging is, and what I could read out from the judgment on the Kanishka case is, the two main agencies which were involved in the investigation of the case, Royal Mounted Police and Canada's Security Intelligence Services, were at variance with each other. They were trying to protect their own turf. It was a purely intelligence failure. Specific information was available with CSIS. Much before this blast took place, there was a written communication from intelligence that something like this is going to happen in the Kanishka flight. This is also related to another Air India flight where a bomb explosion fortunately took place before the flight took off from the Narita airport in Japan. So it was very, very clear that it is a a case of terrorism, a case of sabotage, and it had to emerge that way. The reason why this trial has taken so many years is because a judge or a trial requires conclusive evidence. This conclusive evidence was not being made available by the Canadian authorities, by the Canadian government, for the reasons best known to them. A second important aspect is that there is also uh, a suspicion or a fact which has emerged that the evidence was tampered with. And especially the critical electronic evidence which would substantiate the involvement of a large number of people. And that is why we find that only one person has been convicted, Inderjeet Singh Rayat, because he has confessed. The main masterminds who were part of the Babbar Khalsa group, uh, Ripudaman Singh Malik and Ajay Singh Bagri, were exonerated. It fails. It actually, as a defense analyst, it makes me puzzled, or you fail to understand why the complexity of these two gentlemen who were the masterminds behind this crime was ignored. And not only that, there were facts which were presented to the judge which possibly did not corroborate with the intelligence or the evidence which was given to him. So it was purely a case of cover up where the Canadian authorities were trying to shield their failure, their security failure, because the X-ray machine was also not working on that day, and there were absolutely no checks at the aircraft at the airport. The sniffer dogs were not made available. I believe they had been sent on some other important or some inconsequential, function. So the basic aspect of security at the airport, at the Canadian airport, was not maintained. As a matter of fact,
Yes.
if it was India, the head would have actually rolled by now. All the intelligence people who would have been actually sacked and taken to task. So these are the circumstances. One is wondering that a state like Canada, who is harboring terrorists, could go to that extent so many years back. So there is a history of this nation of shielding terrorists and trying to have a camouflage on its own intelligence network.
Okay, I'll come back to you, sir, and the rest of the guests as well, but let me quickly now take our viewers through what is it that the Justice B.N. Kirpal report has said in its analysis and conclusion. 4.8, and I'm also going to tell you the page number just to be very clear, 159. None of the participants could have produced any evidence which could lead to one conclusion, that there was any external hit to the aircraft. In fact, in the report dated 13th November 1985, which is the year of the bombing, Mr. Paul Turner has stated as follows: the United States NORAD Space Command has confirmed that there was no incoming space debris in the vicinity of Ireland on the 23rd of June 1985. So it is basis this confirmation from the United States NORAD or Space Command that Justice B.N. Kirpal report ruled out the possibility that the aircraft was actually hit by a foreign object or any sort of weather events, one can say. Thus, we are only left with two possibilities, that is structural failure or accident having been caused due to a bomb having been placed inside the aircraft. After going through the entire record, we find that there is circumstantial as well as direct evidence which directly points to the cause of the accident as being of that of an explosion of a bomb in the forward cargo hold of the aircraft. At the same time, there is complete lack of evidence to indicate that there was any structural failure. In this report itself, viewers, they have given in detail the health report card of the aircraft, all the structural as well as technical snags that have been reported, and also how they had been fixed before this aircraft took off from Montreal. The circumstantial and direct evidence which leads to the aforesaid conclusion is as follows. Number one, they have mentioned connection with an explosion at Narita Airport. On the 23rd of June 1985, there was an explosion at the Narita Airport in Japan. The explosion occurred when a bomb exploded in a suitcase which was to be interlined to Air India's flight number 301 from Tokyo to Bangkok. The following events, which had occurred prior to this explosion, clearly established the connection between the two incidents. On the 19th of June 1985, at approximately 6 p.m., a CP Air reservations agent in Vancouver. CP Air was a reservation company, one of their agents in Vancouver on the 19th of June. So this is 5 days before the explosion, receives a telephone from a male with a slight Indian accent. He identifies himself as Mr. Singh and informed the agent that he was making bookings for 2 different males also with the surname of Singh. One booking was made in the name of Jaswant Singh with CP 086 from Vancouver to Dorval on 22nd June 1985 to link with AI 182 departing from Mirabel. The other booking was to Bangkok using CP 003 from Vancouver to Tokyo and AI 301 from Tokyo to Bangkok. So 2 bookings are made by a man who went by the name as Mr. Singh, one for Jaswant Singh on the 22nd of June 1985, which was to depart from Mirabel and of course go to London, and the other booking was from Vancouver to Tokyo and then from Tokyo to Bangkok. This booking was made in the name of Mohinder Bel Singh. A local telephone contact number was given and the call lasted about 1.5 hours. 1.5 hours. On the same date at approximately 7:20 p.m., another reservation agent for CPR was contacted and requested to change the booking for Jaswant Singh. The confirmed flight on CP 086 was cancelled and a reservation was made on CP 060 from Vancouver to Toronto, and a request to be waitlisted on AI 182 from Toronto to Delhi was made. On June 20th, 1985 at about 12:10 p.m., a male appearing to be of Indian origin purchased the tickets with cash from a CP air ticket office in Vancouver. The booking in the name of Mohinder Bel Singh was changed to a name L. Singh, and the booking using the name Jaswant Singh was changed to M. Singh. So initially the bookings were made in the names of Mohinder Bel Singh and Jaswant Singh, but later on 20th of June, 3 days before the bombings, the names were changed to L. Singh and M. Singh. The telephone contact number was also changed, and this of course is the final itinerary. M. Singh was supposed to go from Vancouver to Toronto, confirmed. From AI 181 Toronto to Montreal, he was waitlisted, and then AI 182, which is the plane on which the tragedy occurred, from Montreal to Delhi, he was also waitlisted. L. Singh was from Vancouver to Tokyo, confirmed. From Air India 301 Tokyo to Bangkok, also confirmed. On the 22nd of June at about 6:30 p.m., a caller identifying himself as Mr. Manjeet Singh called the CPA reservations office. The caller spoke with a very heavy Indian accent, wanted to know if his booking on AI 181, 182 was confirmed. The caller was informed by the agent that was still waitlisted out of Toronto and offered to make alternate arrangements to Delhi. The caller stated that he would rather go to the airport and take his chances. He asked if he could send his luggage from Vancouver to Delhi meanwhile, and was told that he could not check in his baggage past Toronto unless his flight was confirmed. And of course the details get murkier, but let me on that note also bring in Lieutenant General Kamaljeet Singh. Lieutenant General Singh, as per the Canadian investigation, sir, on the 1st of June, 22 days before the bombing took place, Air India shared intelligence with all of their global offices, and this intelligence also reached Canadian police, where they said that there's a possibility of a bombing or some sort of a sabotage attempt on one of the Air India flights, and we need to be very vigilant. On the 4th of June, sir, as per Canadian intelligence, 2 Canadian intelligence officers tailed this man, Talvinder Singh Parmar and Riyad Singh, who are the key masterminds, conspirators of the Kanishka bombing, into this wooded area of Duncan in British Columbia, where they heard a loud explosion which they wrote off as a gunshot, which ultimately they realized was actually a trial bomb explosion. Just 20 days after that, sir, there are all these people, L Singh, M Singh, getting the names changed, insisting that their luggage be checked in, but they may not come on the same flight. Despite all the evidence that was gathered and shared, why do you think there was such a lax attitude on the day of the event?
Jai Hind, it's good to be on your show on this very interesting report that you have shared and made public. Firstly, when you see the report, like I said in another sort of appearance, that you can't help but appreciate it. It's so detailed, with graphics made, with detailed description given. So here, when you read the follow-ups, the same person, Justice Kirpal, later gave an interview and lamented the fact that nobody was really blamed for this except for Inderjeet Singh Riat, who was the only person who was convicted. Beyond that, Talvinder Singh Parmar, Ajay Singh Bagdi, Ripu Daman Singh Malik, who it was quite clear were part of all this, were not. And as per Justice Kirpal, it appeared that it was Ajay Singh Bagdi and Ripu Daman Singh Malik who had done this thing of being L Singh, M Singh and all this charade that they had played out. Now, they were given the benefit of doubt, and two agencies, Royal Canadian Mounted Police and Canadian Security Intelligence Service, kept bickering and under the garb of mischievous and ill-informed kind of liberalism in trying to give extra, advantage to somebody unless he's convicted as guilty, benefit of doubt kind of mentality. They allowed these two people to get away. And Justice Kirpal was right in asking that if they didn't do it, who did it? That was the responsibility that Canada had to exercise. You can't have so many people dying and nobody being held accountable. How can you do that? And that is where there is a need to sort of, for Canadians to have taken it forward. Later, the Conservative Prime Minister, he apologized for this. And when PM Modi had visited Canada in 2015, he apologized. He said, we have not followed it through and we have not brought the guilty to book. So Canada on their own has lots to answer. And the ecosystem within, this current crisis should be seen as an opportunity to reform their justice system, intelligence system. See, all these gang warfares are going on. Sukhdev Singh was killed, Sukha, Denike, and Ripu Daman Singh Malik was eliminated. After that, Hardeep Singh Nijjar was eliminated. All these gang warfares are going on. And our gangs are hiding over there. So I hope Canadians utilize this crisis as an opportunity to reform their system. And it is never too late to, whatever is left of this, to take it forward, to put it out in public domain, that these were the people and who were given unfair advantage. Because a closure has to take place. So many people have died. It's not, and from many nationalities. Besides India, people have died from other nationalities. Japanese and Irish and American, other nationalities have also perished. So I hope Canada takes heed to this. And I am glad that your channel has taken it up so strongly and is discussing this report, bringing out it in public. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. And I'd like to point out that this is the first time, perhaps, that the details, all 220 pages, have actually been put out for people not just in India, but for the world to also understand. That's something that Canada took over 3 decades to put together. India actually made this report within months of the explosion, shared this report with Canada, shared the intel with Canada, and yet the people who were possibly roaming free in Canada at the point, was still allowed to go scot-free. Only one man was convicted out of all the masterminds, the man who actually physically put the bomb together. And in 2017, even he was released from prison and allowed to reintegrate into society. The rest, of course, were never even convicted. Most were acquitted. Ambassador Suresh Goyal, a lot of people at this point in time, sir, are wondering why is it that we're talking about the Kanishka bombing suddenly? Why are we talking about it? I'd like to help, take your help to put it into perspective for our viewers. Why is it important for us to understand what happened in 1984, 1985, when a man called Talvinder Singh Parmar, who India requested, please extradite him, send him back, he's a criminal, we want him back and we want to bring him to justice. Canada refused, gave him safe haven, and hundreds of lives were lost. Today we stand at a similar point, sir, where again there are requests for extradition of Khalistani terrorists, which Canada continues to deny.
Devika, thank you very much. I think it's really useful to go over the past history of what happened during Kanishka time. Would you, by the way, recall who was the Prime Minister at that time when Talvinder Parmar he reached Canada in 1980s, early 80s, and Mrs. Gandhi since 1981 to 84, even till the time she was assassinated, was writing more or less regularly to the Prime Minister then, the Canadian Prime Minister. Would you recall the name? It was Trudeau.
Pierre Trudeau, yes, sir.
Pierre Trudeau. Justin Trudeau's father, who was the Prime Minister, and he did the same thing that Justin Trudeau has been doing. At that time also, all the warnings were completely ignored. All the inputs, and they were inputs, they were not just given intelligence information. There were dossiers, there were data given to the Canadian government by Mrs. Gandhi and our agencies about what Talvinder Parmar had been up to. Talvinder Parmar had issued warnings in Canada that the Indian planes will fall to the ground. What more do you need? He's making very, very clear threats to the Indians. And the report makes it very clear. The report, I remember I was in Malaysia at that time. I had just gone on the posting. And the Malaysian newspapers used to give very prominent headlines to this, basically because it was Canadians, but of Indian origin, who actually perished in the flight. And many of them had links in Malaysia, because Malaysia also had a very, very significant Sikh population. And many of them were related. So it was a big event, big tragedy for Malaysians when this happened. So I used to read it every day, Kirpal Singh's report. Parts of it were flashed over there in the media. And it was very clear that the only way Kanishka could have fallen the way it fell was because of an internal explosion within the flight. There was a bomb which was exploded by somebody from outside, from inside, we don't know. But it was a bomb. Okay. Now, in the same context, there are two articles which I think that there is a book, Cold Terror. Have you heard of the book, Devika and my other co-panelists? There is a book called Cold Terror by Stephen Bell. In 300 pages, it explains how Canada has nurtured and exported terrorism over 50 years. Not just Khalistani, Tamil terrorism. Canada was the country which gave shelter to the Bangladeshi who was responsible for assassination of Bangabandhu, Sheikh Mujib. I mean, the data is endless of
sir.
what Canada has been doing. And I think, we are talking about Kanishka, of course, as a matter to illustrate, but the fact is that Canada has turned its eyes away from terrorism on its soil for more than 50 years now.
Absolutely.
And therefore, I would again suggest that what I have been saying for a long time now, really. We need to deal with this thing on two grounds, really. One, as a pure security issue vis-a-vis Canada. And I think in that sense also, because unfortunately, what happens is, by the way, interestingly, When we had taken the case to extradite Talvinder Parmar to India, do you know what Trudeau said? Trudeau said that we are not sufficiently respectful or deferential to the Queen because we consider Queen to be the head only of Commonwealth, not the head of. Amazing. There is an article by a person by the name Milseviki. He wrote a year ago in a paper here, and this explains how it has brought out all these kind of things. Therefore, we need to deal with Canada not just as a country to the north of India, the USA, but as a country which can be a serious threat to the security of the world through the terrorism that it has given place on its own soil, not just Khalistani, which of course is a more important part, but even Tamil and terrorists from Bangladesh. It has given place to all of them. Number two.
Yes, sir.
Canada is a white supremacist. Canada cannot simply give up on its own perception that it is of European extraction. And therefore, its policies are Eurocentric. Please look at its behavior all along. It considers itself really, to say that we are not deferential to the Queen.
Yes.
Are we a country? This is ridiculous. So Canada has to get away from this old mindset of the European being supreme.
Okay.
Europe is not supreme. Canada must learn to be part of the new world system where there are countries other than the whites who are playing a role.
Absolutely, sir. And as you put out, it was the whims and fancies of one person, Pierre Trudeau, that possibly led to this tragedy in 1985. But on that note, before we wrap up, Colonel J.S. Sodhi, your quick thoughts, sir, on whatever it is that we've shared as far as this particular report is concerned, the Justice Kirpal report.
Jai Hind, Devika. It's my honor to be on a news channel and a privilege to be with the esteemed co-panelist. There is no denying the doubt that the Indian government since 1980 till date has been repeatedly and regularly submitting reports and evidences of the Khalistani activists who are waging a war on India from the Canadian soil. But from 90 till date, no Canadian Prime Minister has taken any action. This Kanishka bombing coup could have been avoided. The loss of 329 lives could have been avoided. Every single person could have been saved had the Canadian government of Pierre Trudeau, or the Canadian Prime Minister from 1980 to 1984, taken action. Mrs. Indira Gandhi kept on writing to him, but Canada always turned a blind eye to all the efforts of India to bring these Khalistani terrorists to book. I think it is high time. The world has suffered enough because of Canada. Earlier we were suffering because of Pakistan. Now it is Canada. Till the time Canada does not change its policies, does not make things transparent, and brings the guilty to book, I don't think terrorism will end in the near future, because Canada is the new epicenter of terrorism after Pakistan.
Absolutely. Colonel Sodhi, thank you so much. And on that note, I thank all of our guests for joining us as we take viewers not just in India but in the world over the details of the Justice B.N. Kirpal report into the Kanishka bombing.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.